let's go kill another shark. It's always like, I'm off to go kill another shark. And, she's always like, well, what about me? And he's like, well, you've got the kids and the business to run.
Welcome to the official, unofficial Sea of Thieves podcast, a podcast dedicated to Sea of Thieves and other rare games, but mainly Sea of Thieves. And today we are discussing Adventure 6, The Hunter's Cry. In this finale, we are set out to rescue Merrick, who is trapped in the Sea of the Damned by the Dark Brethren, and it is our job to go and rescue him. To do so, we will need to light some beacons, fight off ghost ships, fight off phantoms, but also fight off other crews, which I'm sure will be a big discussion. Sadly, my co-host isn't here today, but luckily we've got something much better.
Hey everyone, it's me, Captain Logan of the Keelhauled podcast. I'm stepping in for Shiny Ray because, well, let's be honest, I got better takes. So I'm going to be here talking with you guys. I hope you guys enjoy this episode as we get into it.
I think they're already enjoying it. They're like, oh, this voice, he's finally back. And it's a good trade-off too. I hope you're going to be the more positive voice in this podcast. Usually I am. And Shiny Ray is a bit more negative, but this time I was a little bit disappointed by the adventure, so hopefully you can be my yin to my yang.
I feel like I see what was going on, and there are some unfortunate scenarios going on right now with this adventure, but overall I think the adventure is still probably a tall tale worthy amount of content that we got for it. But yeah, we can kind of I don't want to jump the gun before we get into our discussions.
Indeed, because first I have an announcement to make, and it's the same announcement as last time. Because I want to remind our listeners that they can financially support this channel if they want. Well, support this podcast, I should say. Because keeping the podcast alive is costing us more money than we gain. So if you want to support us, the best way is using super thanks, and in the future we will also have some posters, so you can have something in return as well. So please help us out if you're able to do so. If not, you can always leave a like. That also helps. So yeah, let's go into the main discussion. And before I do, I'll give a quick summary of the adventure. So I'll be a good host. Just like always, we start this adventure by talking to Lorena. We do so. She tells us that the Pirate Lord is waiting on the docks for us. When we get there, he opens up a portal to the Sea of the Damned. We travel through it and we arrive at a twisted version of the Sea Docks Tavern. We are tasked to light the lighthouses and the beacons so we can reach the top to save Merrick. Like mentioned before, we're fighting phantoms, ghost ships, and maybe some other players. Once we arrive at the top, the Pirate Lord appears yet again. He has a little back and forth with the Dark Brethren. Then they escape and leave Merrick, who decides to remain a ghost so he won't get hunted again. And then we go back to the Sea of Thieves. And then we have a little side quest, a little epilogue to this adventure, where we deliver Merrick's letter to his wife, Sarek, which was quite a touching moment, I think. So, did we like this adventure?
If we're taking the adventure just as the adventure, if I was to watch a video of someone playing through the adventure from the studios, I would say I love this adventure. I thought this adventure was really beautiful. It was harrowing to be able to get in there and feel like it was a race to the top of the tower. It felt like it goes right back to, for me, Super Mario Brothers. Super Mario Brothers, there was always especially 64. 64 really kind of like built up this idea. It's like you're being taunted by the enemy. You're having to get through these different towers. You're trying to light these beacons. You're trying to get things set up so that you can get to the top of the tower to rescue Princess Merrick. And this kind of really harkened back to what I loved about old games. It's like you had a goal. You got to the top of the goal and you got rewarded for that goal. So going through this, I would say I really liked it. There were things that really detracted from my experience, but those were player elements. Those weren't AI elements. So if I was to rate this adventure, I would say this adventure was great. As far as the story and the lore, I think the implementation could do work.
Interesting take. I've never looked at it from that perspective, like saving the princess. I guess they are taunting you, so I guess you get maybe some Banjo-Kazooie vibes as well. You also race to the top in that game. Yeah, see, I was still a little disappointed. You say beautiful, well crafted, and I feel the idea is really exciting. Like we're using the portals again. We go to the Sea of the Damned again. Like what we always wanted to be there again since the Pie's Life Tall Tales. But having the Sea Dogs Tavern just no, it felt like a reskin to me. It was a bit underwhelming. It was like I want to traverse a new area, but this new area is not a new area. It's the same area, but with slight alterations. Don't know how you feel about that.
I wasn't too bummed about that. It did feel kind of odd that it was the Sea Dog Tavern, but I imagine that they had to kind of use some location in the Sea of the Damned. Having the Sea Dog Tavern with slight modifications afforded them the opportunity to get this content made at a reasonable click. So when it comes to them using the Sea Dog Tavern, it makes sense because Amaranta is part of the Dark Brethren court at this point, and she's been wielding the Gold Hoarder staff to be able to traverse to and from the Sea of the Damned. So it's all based off of memory, right? Most of the Sea of the Damned is based off of our personal memory with the cursed captain in the first Pirate's Life Tall Tale. All of that area was based off of their memory. So when I look at, when we're going to the Sea of the Damned, it makes sense that it would be based off of someone's memory. And I can't imagine that it would be, Duke was always at the outpost, and that was kind of his main bag. And with Wanda or the Warsmith, it would have been either like, Wanderer's Refuge or Golden Sands Outpost. Well, you can't really do Golden Sands Outpost because that's kind of her old life, but we've also kind of been really tied to Merrick and Golden Sands Outposts recently. But you do have this new character, Amaranta, and Amaranta, depending on how you like to pronounce it, has a fresh intake into the Dark Brethren's pool of memories to pull from. And we never really get to do anything at Sea Dog's Tavern. We certainly never get to go in it anymore. But there's definitely a lot of people that have never really ventured over there or spent much time over there. And focusing in on using the Sea Dog Tavern, I think affords an opportunity for players to figure out or find out that there's actually a cool little obstacle course that you can run around on there. And this one, for the first time ever, they've put purpose to that little obstacle course. And they've actually put a little twist on it by needing the beacons lit by the lighthouses to be able to show the actual path itself. So not only are you having to try and traverse this obstacle course, which is already a little difficult for platformer, but you're also having to work together with other people to make sure that the beacons are lit so that you can actually have that obstacle course show up. So it was a unique opportunity for them to play around with different types of mechanics that we've seen in game. Having a visual representation of the lighthouses that actually affect something as opposed to just lighting a beacon. Having an obstacle course that most people probably don't know about from the Sea Dog Tavern. Having the Sea Dog Tavern being the center point, but that being a pool of memory from a new character that was introduced into the Dark Brethren court, I thought did a really good job of pulling together things that we're familiar with and kind of kit bashing them into this event.
Well, I'm really glad you're so positive, Logan. I really am. And I like it too. Like, I don't think it's a bad adventure at all. I think it was, well crafted enough, and you can really tell they put the effort in there. So you also mentioned that you really like the lore of this adventure.
Yeah, because I think that we've had Merrick for a while now. Merrick being the first NPC in the game that was brought into the Sea of Thieves beyond the original cast of characters that we had. We've been with him for a long time, and many people just know him as the dude that was hunting down sharks. And now we're seeing something in Sea of Thieves that really hasn't been done before, something that I've wanted for a while, and I've wanted the world to feel more alive. I wanted there to feel like not everyone has plot armor, something that protects the player or the character from having anything egregious happen to them because they're integral to the story. And it's a step that Sea of Thieves is taking where they're not going full on Game of Thrones. Like they're not just going to kill off everyone, but they can take certain people who have been in the game for a long time and really build out their story. Like one of the reasons I think a lot of people really loved the story of George and Rose from the original Tall Tales was the meaningfulness, the relationship that they had, and the love that was stolen from them. You know, the life that was stolen from them by Rook. So when you do something like that, it really kind of connects to people because obviously we're humans, we have experiences, and that connects to us. So having the lore set up around Merrick, and knowing that Merrick is doing what's best for the Sea of Thieves at the cost of his family, but knowing that his action will not only save the Sea of Thieves, but will also protect his family from future issues, means that we're going to lose Merrick. And we're not going to get to have him in the world as his normal self. But nothing ever really dies in Sea of Thieves. So while he's gone and he's dead, he's not going to necessarily be gone. The Pirate Lord said that he was going to be kind of kept away in secret and stuff. So I'm sure at some point we'll eventually get to see Merrick again. We'll definitely get to like interact with him at some point, probably in a future Tall Tale, or not Tall Tale adventure, because they don't really do the Tall Tales anymore. But I love that they're willing to take characters for the Dark Brethren. The Dark Brethren, honestly, to me, feel like the best cast of characters to move the kind of not evil but malicious intent forward in Sea of Thieves. Like the Flameheart was good because we opened the coffin, the big head showed up, and the big head was in the in the sky for a long time, and then we found out that the servant of flame is Flameheart Jr., which I'm still not a fan of. But that story hasn't really felt as visceral, as something you can kind of grab and hold on to as the Dark Brethren Court. The Dark Brethren Court is a group of people who were spurned by Sea of Thieves, who are bitter, and you can see them, you can interact with them, you can deal with them in this kind of lore situation, and it's a lot more tangible than what Flameheart has been so far. So I love that they're moving the lore forward with the Dark Brethren Court. I think a lot of people still have very mixed emotions about Duke. So when you're going through this story, the goal is to save Merrick, and you want to save Merrick, but you don't actually get to save Merrick the way that I think most people were expecting. I think a lot of us were expecting that Merrick would just come back and he would show up on Stephen Spoils, so we'd be able to turn and fish there. I still don't know how they're going to resolve that. Maybe they'll have him be there as the ghost. Maybe that makes more sense. But for all intents and purposes, I think that the lore is doing a good job of continuing the story forward, especially a lot more than I would say like the mystery right now. Like the mystery feels like it's been dragging on for months, whereas we had the setup, Merrick's death, the Shrouded Deep, and then his rescue, all within the span of a couple months. But it's moved along so much faster than anything else in the game that I'm very glad that we're getting this type of lore. I'm glad that they're pushing this story forward, because it puts a resolution on Merrick's story so that now we can focus on someone else. Maybe we can bring another character into the limelight and let them have their 15 minutes in 4 adventures. What do you think, Bob?
All right. Well, thanks for that very long answer that, encompasses the entire podcast.
Oh my God. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's fine. Like it's nice to have that perspective, and nice to see you so excited for the lore as well. And I do agree with that. But it just feels a little different to me, because we had the amazing lore reveals of the last adventure, where Amaranta was part of the Dark Brethren, and even Duke showing up again in the Sea of the Damned. Those were great revelations, even though half of them were in the trailer. And with this adventure, I kind of felt a little disappointed with the lore, because like before we go into it, our job is to rescue Merrick, and that's essentially what we do. Like, he remains a ghost. Oh, that's true. But nothing really changes. We don't learn anything new from the Dark Brethren. We don't know their motivations. We still don't know what Duke's role is. I mean, I don't expect it, but to know it already. But at least a little more information would have been nice, and we don't really get that. It's only Only Merrick is a ghost now. That's the new revelation of this adventure, and we don't get anything new. So lore-wise, like I like the overall story. Don't get me wrong, but it didn't give us anything new to speculate about.
You're not wrong. That is it is a solid point. I think I was looking at it more from the story moving forward as part of the lore, because I think that I think I look at the lore a little bit differently than how other folks typically look at lore. Like finding out that the Gold Hoarder's eyes were Veilstones. That was more lore in like we discovered something about it. For me, the lore of Sea of Thieves has always been the overall adventures that we have moving forward through the history of Sea of Thieves. So we are part of the lore. So I think adventures like this, in my mind, always kind of tie back to the lore. But we did find out about the pirate lord having the veil that he said he was going to keep safe for the future. Duct tape that thing to his staff right there. What do you think of that?
Well, really interesting you brought this up because I have a lot of questions about it actually.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Well, first of all, like he duct taped it to his original staff, right? And that already had the skull, like this tiny voodoo skull of the. It looks like the Golder, but it's probably is not the Golder because obvious reasons. But it also has two stones in it, just like the Gold Order. And then he tied it to, he tied the Veil of the Ancients, which we delivered to him complete. But when we look at it now, there are no Veil stones. So how does it even work?
Yeah, I wonder if there's something going on that it was either like an oversight in the modeling, or if there's something actually going on with that aspect of it. But yeah, it's funny. I love that his little skull put on a little mask, and now his little mask is the thing that helps us get. It's so funny. It's like they figured out, like they're like, oh well, I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but there's not really a good analogy. But it's like everyone just figured out you stick something on a stick, and then that turns it into a magical item. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's probably what the ancients did. They probably just had something that was and they're like, oh, stick it to a stick, and now it's a magical weapon.
Well, don't forget, usually you also need a ritual, right, in the Sea of Thieves?
Yeah, definitely. I wonder what the ritual, maybe there was just them getting drunk and they were like, all right, let's get drunk and tie this thing to a stick.
It does sound like the Pirate Lord. But do you think we'll get some more information about his staff? Because I always thought there was a story about his little skull, but maybe there isn't.
I was always wondering about that because it seems like there's like I've always wanted to know the lore behind, because if you look in the art book, like the art book has kind of an early version of the Pirate Lord, and they 100% model out like the skull on the staff, and it doesn't really explain whose skull that is or why it's important. There's like the emblem of the actual Athena's fortune, the little pirate legend emblem. I've always wanted to know the history behind that. I've always wanted to know the history for his peg leg as well too, his little griffin peg leg.
Well, that's because of his name, right?
Yeah. I mean, Ramses sing, but I don't really.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know enough to really be able to tie it there.
Isn't it a Eastern name for lion, like his last name, and that's why he has a lion's foot as a peg leg? I think that's the explanation.
Interesting. Oh, okay. So maybe that is the case. I always associated Sing with a lot of Chinese history that I'm used to. But if there's a different name behind Sing, then yeah, that would make a lot more sense.
All right, let me look it up real quick. Otherwise, people are gonna be mad in the comments. Oh, it's Hindi. It's Hindi for lion. Yeah, there you go.
So that's probably what it's tied to then. Okay, well that makes a lot more sense. That's good to know. I learned something today.
Well, I'm glad I was able to do that. So do you think we'll get that eventually, like the backstory to his staff, or is it gone and it's just focused on the Veilstone now?
I don't think we're going to get that unless it becomes essential to the story. But it seems like such a kind of little tidbit of information that it doesn't make sense to make it like part of a whole adventure. Like obviously the veil mask itself and the Veilstones have been very important to the history. And it feels maybe this was something that Mike had planned long ago, but I feel like the gold hoarder's eyes being veilstones is a little bit of a retcon to figure out how they're supposed to get, Amaranth and them back to the Sea of the Damned and from the Sea of the Damned and stuff, because they're like, how do we do this? There's veilstones. Well, we got all the veilstones from Flameheart. It's like, okay, well, how do we get more veilstones? And then they're just like, oh yeah, I remember I was talking to Rathbone one day and he was talking about how his eyes were veilstones. It's like, oh, that's cool. That's wait, what? We could use where's his skull? Bring me his skull. And I'm like, that feels a little retcon to me, but maybe it's part of something that they had been planning long ago. But as far as the staff goes, I don't know, man. I don't see a world where that would be an important enough thing in the story to really kind of latch into.
Well, it could have been a throwaway line, right? Like maybe the skull of his unborn child, and he's like, "Oh, I'll remember you forever. I'll put you on a staff."
Wow, that's a place.
Well, it's a small skull. It's a small skull. How do you get the skull so small? Maybe it's a fake skull. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be a carving of a skull. My gosh, I don't know. I mean, if you go real dark and be like, "Oh, it's Mercedes' skull," it's like you'd really get dark with it or something. I don't know, man.
Oh, Mercia.
Or Mercia. What did I say?
Yeah, Mercia. Mercedes.
Mercedes. Oh my God, it's too early for me. It could be Mercia. Shan's skull, maybe. Shan.
We are going to the dark side now. Okay, but let's leave the stuff for what it is. We do think it's an oversight, right, with the Veilstones?
It seems weird that the Veilstones aren't in there. I'll have to go review the footage to kind of see if I can take another look at it, because I recorded everything, but I didn't really pay close attention because I knew I was recording it. But I knew that he had it duct taped onto his staff. But yeah, I would imagine that the Veilstones should be there. So if anything, I would say that the intent is for him to be able to use the mask to be able to open up the portal. So if that's happening, I would assume that the Veilstones should be in the actual staff or the mask itself.
Yeah, I agree. It's just weird because the Dark Brethren Phantoms, they used the cutlass of Flameheart Jr., which also a little bit weird. But I see that as an oversight. All right, that can happen. You just pulled like a render of a cutlass and you didn't really know what cutlass it was. It's fine. But this is a little different. Like, like lore-wise, you do need the stones, and then you don't have the stones. It's a bit weird, but oh well. We'll just say it was an oversight.
Continuity, Rare. Get your S together. We expect continuity.
That's why we're fans. And to be fair, they usually do a really good job at continuity. So back to the adventure, back to the Sea Dogs Tavern. Was it confusing for you? Did you know what to do straight away?
Oh my God, no! It was amazingly confusing. It wasn't until I saw one person light a beacon and I was like, oh God, there's a point and purpose. Like, I didn't know if we had to fight the ships. I didn't know if we had to like I ran up to the tower for the lighthouse and it was blocked off, and I was like, well, I guess this is time gated, so I'll just kill phantoms. And I just kept killing phantoms for a while. And then finally I saw someone run by and light a beacon. And I was like, oh, okay. There's a mechanic. I get it. But yeah, no, it was not straightforward at all.
Did you communicate with the other crews, or how did that go?
I did non-verbally. Like I didn't want to really chat with anyone because I was recording. So I wanted to kind of capture things without people talking or talking to people and stuff. So I went in solo the first time I did it, and I had probably like 3 or 4 sloop crews and then 1 galleon, and the galleon dipped after they got sunk by the ghost ships. So it was just us and probably about maybe 5 people. And it was all just kind of through observation. Like I would figure something out from someone else, and then I'd go over and do it to the other towers. And then as soon as I got the other towers done, I knew that we had to use the lanterns or the lighthouses. So I had to figure out where the lighthouses were and then angle those. And then when I figured out what that was, other people saw it and they kind of picked up the cues, and we kind of got it worked out. But there were definitely some points where it's like this, if this was just like 2 allianced galleons going in who were on voice comms, it probably would have gotten done a lot faster. But
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that it was tough to kind of go in and not know what to do and trying to work stuff out. It's like I figured I got there in the end, but it was not very well explained. Designed really cool, but just not explained very well.
Do you think they could have done a better job on that?
I do. I think that a couple voice lines from Ramses, maybe even having like I'll be honest. In this instance, I think it would have been cool if Pendragon had heard about what was going on, and in an effort to help his friend Merrick, had popped up on the little lighthouse sections to help us fight some of the phantoms and give us little dialogue hints as to like, I'll fight these guys off as long as you can get those beacons lit so that we can get into this tower and light those beacons to light our way. You know, something like that would have been a great design element to add flavor to the actual adventure, but also guide the player in what they had to do.
Yeah, that sounds like a great suggestion. Yeah, that's great. Good suggestion. Did you encounter any PvP?
A little bit. Like I said, the galleon was coming in. They were rolling in, and they started shooting at us, and they got sunk. And then after they got sunk, they just left. But after that, I think everyone, because it was so early on in the adventure, we really wanted to kind of figure out what was going on, and because of that, it was easy for us to just kind of be like, all right, you know what? We're all here for the same purpose. We all want to get to the top of the castle and rescue Princess Merrick. So if that's going to be the case, then we want to like not just kill each other.
Nice. That's great. You had a good experience. Same for us, by the way. Everybody, they kind of knew what they were doing too as well, so it went really smoothly. And then I made my video and I said, well, there could be some people in there who might treat it as their personal arena. I'm kind of fearful for that. And then all the comments started coming in on my video. And about 80% of the comments is people complaining that they got griefed. So do you know of this? Have you seen it in your community? And what do you think?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of this. A lot of people have been talking about this. It's a very hot topic. It's probably what's brought down the vibe of the adventure overall. So like I 100% sympathize with the people that have had a rough time because, yeah, essentially you're taking a bunch of crews, you're sticking them into a small little arena area, and PvP is enabled. So if people want to PvP, they can PvP. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. It's not focusing on the objective of the adventure, but Rare hasn't given them any outlet for this. They haven't given them any path to role play as the Dark Brethren if they wanted to role play as the Flameheart crews. It's like, so if you do that and you just push everyone onto the side of helping the Pirate Lord, then yeah, 100%. You're going to sit there and have you're going to have people that aren't there for the story. They're just checking it out. They don't really care about the integrity of the lore, and they don't really want to do anything, especially if this is the other thing too. When people can't figure out what to do, they get frustrated and they look for other things to do because they're bored and they don't want to necessarily do that. I didn't know how to play Destiny 2 for years. So what did I do? I stood in one area and I killed everything that was running at me. I didn't invest myself in understanding what to do or look up any videos. I wasted a bunch of my time just killing enemies that didn't really mean anything to me. So if players are getting in here, they're getting stuck, they're getting bored, they're going to go kill each other because that's the thing that they understand. That's what they can do at the time because they haven't been able to figure out what else to do. So there are going to be people that are dedicated to work it out and have fun. And there's other people that are going to get bored because they're either not involved with the thing enough or they don't understand what to do or they just want to go in there for the sake of killing people because they know that that's what it is. It's like letting a wolf into the sheep's herd, at night. It's like, of course that's going to happen, but it's a big problem though.
Yeah. Do you think it would have been different if Arena was still there?
I don't think it wouldn't be there. I do think you would still run into this because it's the same reason why there are some people that want to play first person shooters in competitive, or they want to play first person shooters that don't have a matchmaking rating. Like they don't want an MMR system because they want to go in and they want to stomp on the people that are just worse, way worse than they are. So even if you had arena, where that would be the more focused place to go and actually kill each other, that would not remove it from this adventure, because people would still PvP in adventure when arena was open. There's no reason for them to not go and try and kill people in an adventure, even if arena was still there.
Yeah, I do agree with that, actually. I do. And it's even easier than arena, actually, because everybody's just there and they have nowhere to go and the match doesn't end. So unless they quit, then well, people like doing that, making other people quit, sadly. And that's the strangest thing about it, because it's unfortunate that it happened. I had my hopes that it wouldn't happen, that people would just play it for the adventure and people were just decent human beings, and obviously most players are. But you could have seen this coming. So do you feel the same? Should Rare have prevented this ahead of time, or what?
I do think that this is something that they probably should have taken into account. And I think that the way they should have done it was they should have built out two sides to this story. There's only one way to play this story, and that's on the side of the Pirate Lord. And I had a really good discussion on Twitter about this with some community members who wanted to role play as the Dark Brethren. They really associate with themselves with Flameheart and with Dark Brethren and being on the bad side of things. So I think if they were going into this knowing that this was going to be the situation, then they should have built an outlet for that. They should have designed a way for you to align with the Dark Brethren, have it kick off from Reaper's Bones, or have it kick off from a specific island where they're camped out, and said like, hey, we're trying to keep Merrick. The Pirates Lord's lackeys are trying to rescue him. We need you to go and try and stop him. And that would have been an opportunity to really kind of build in like a PvP side where there are two factions kind of going head to head. And I would have probably have changed the design of the adventure so it was less mechanically inclined and made it more kind of a tug of war or capture points, where you just have to occupy part of the Sea Dog Tavern for a certain amount of time to kick up a spawn point. So at the very base of the tall tavern, if you fight back and you stop the people on the Dark Brethren side, then you get a respawn point at the base of the Sea Dog Tavern. And then as you work your way up the tavern, you have to capture more points, and that opens up closer respawn points till eventually you get to the very top of the tower, where it's a much bigger kind of TDM. And you're dealing with this. But this is all caveated by the fact that our PvP system in Sea of Thieves right now is not where it needs to be a competitive shooter. So it's tough for me to want something like that. But I think something like that in a perfect world, in a perfect design world, I think would have been a much better outlet for sticking multiple crews into this adventure, knowing that some of them are going to want to PvP and some of them are not going to want to PvP. And how do you balance that?
So in this scenario you're sketching, would it have been one crew versus another crew, or multiple crews versus multiple crews?
I think you want to go multiple crews versus multiple crews, because some people are going to be good at PvP and want to be on a specific side. Like you're going to have really sweaty sweat lords wanting to join up for both sides because they think of themselves as the heroes of the story. So they're really good at PvP, but they want to be on the Pirate Lord's side. And you're going to get people who want to be evil, but they're probably not as strong at PvP. The trouble here is that you've got one side of the story that is solely focused on PvP with the Reaper's Bones, and the Dark Brethren Court kind of in a side kind of group, and the other group is a purely PvPvE group that is aligned with like the Pirate Lords. So you're going to get a broader scope of people who are happy with doing just PvE or doing just PvP, but like the Reaper's Bones are mostly just strictly PvP for the most part. So it's going to be a little unbalanced in that case. But I think you want to have multiple crews going at it, so that way it feels more like an epic battle. and you're running into the scenario where you can at least kind of hope that people going into both sides are not as strong at PvP as the other side, and it kind of balances itself out by adding more players to the scenario.
Interesting. It does sound like fun. I would have just made it a one crew experience. That's my solution.
That would serve it as well too. That's I think the easy way to go about it. I think Rare wanted to have it be big enough that you can't just do it as one one crew. Like a solo slooper would have a really hard time doing this adventure if it was just one person.
Yeah. So it's not for solo sloopers, but I think a duo sloop would have had a lot of fun if it was a single crew experience.
Yeah.
I feel, and you could have soaked up more of the dialogue, like all the taunting, and little Billy wouldn't be screaming in his microphone at the ending, at the the back and forth they have at the end. But because again, I had some comments from people saying, yeah, that's what happened. Like some were not there at the top, and those that were at the top, they couldn't understand the story because Timmy and Billy were making noise, which is unfortunate, and you can prevent that with a single crew. So.
Yeah, I got to the very end. Thankfully, the crews that were really good at doing the objective waited till everyone kind of got up there before kicking off the ending there. But even after like the ending had started, people were still using in-game voice. And it's like no one was like it wasn't like kindergarten where you sit down and you have story time. Everyone was still kind of doing their own thing. And at that point, it's like you're kind of pulled out of the experience because not everyone there is contributing to the perfect environment for it. They're doing what they want, which they have a right to. It's their game time. But I do think that aspect of it is something where I would be like, okay, I think going into this, how do you get crews that do not know each other work together for a common goal to be able to see the end of this thing, but also not have it so that their voice comms are destroying the atmosphere for the story at the end. And I think I think you got to do the cinematic at that point, right? Like you got to have something that pulls you out of the game, gives you a cinematic that everyone has to watch or people can skip. But at least like having a little skip button at the very bottom is much more passive than just letting everyone have their dialogue in game. But it pulls away from like experiencing the story at the same time. Like these are the conversations I assumed they had going into building this.
Well, that's true, but I know for a fact that they don't like to do cutscenes in the game, not even in-game cutscenes. That's against their design philosophy. You just need to be there if you want to catch a conversation. That's how they want to design it. And which is nice. Well, I get it. I certainly get it, but not in this situation, obviously.
I think that they really have to try and figure out how they can build the experience out that protects people from missing out on the story or having the story be like, even if it's just like there is a trigger that as soon as Merrick's gets triggered for this event, then everyone's voice comms gets like muted. Like even if you have the setting turned off, just like there's a mute state. Dragon Ball or like Fortnite is doing this right now, where there is there's a Fortnite event going on where Dragon Ball Z is available in Fortnite, and they have little sections that you can go to, and it's an open environment, and you can there's a big screen, and it's showing an episode of Dragon Ball Z. But if you don't want people jumping around doing goofy stuff or dancing in front of you while you're trying to watch this episode, they have a little section cordoned off, which is considered the full screen experience. And when you go in there, you hit a button and the episode plays on the full screen without the arena, without the environment around you, without seeing anyone else. It's just like if you were watching a show off of Netflix or YouTube or something. It's all just full on screen. And I think something like that would be a great way to kind of say, like, for people that want the cinematic experience and don't mind getting pulled out of the game, that would be a way for them to be able to have it both ways. and maybe something like that can be experienced, or something that like that can be kind of expressed. Like, do you want to interact with Merrick and have a cutscene, or do you want to interact with Merrick and have the event play out live? And then see how you can do that to try and protect some of the experience for other people who want to capture the audio for that, for history, for historical purposes, but don't want Timmy and Billy talking about what they're going to go do after this, like over the dialogue, talking over the NPCs.
Good ideas, good ideas. Especially considering the adventure just ends straight after that as well. So you could have done something like that. Yeah, nice. I like it. Something that else that you said, I want to touch upon this, is there are people that want to roleplay as the Dark Brethren, and your suggestion, you could roleplay as, Athena's Fortune and the Dark Brethren, is a great solution, I think. However, that's also a lot of development time if you want to do something like that. Plus, you need an outcome for A and an outcome for B, and you need to prepare for that. And again, lots of development time. However, I would like to see future adventures from the perspective of the Reaper's Bones or the Dark Brethren, because we've been working for Athena for so long. Why not make a tall tale? Why not make an adventure that's where you're working for Duke or somebody else? How do you feel about that? Would you like that?
Oh yeah, who wouldn't? I would love for them to dive back into. I'm of the mindset that I think tall tales are a perfect way to preserve the history of the game. Having an ability to go back and play through, what was it yesterday? Yesterday I went back. I grabbed my final chapter for the Gold Hoarder and Shores of Gold. And I went through and played through it. And I was like, this was really fantastic. I'm really glad that I got to go through this again, because it was just a fun experience. It was great to go and try and do all the jumping puzzles again. And it was good to take on the Gold Hoarder and see Ramses talking about, all the gold and glory, and how the filth of greed can't be scrubbed off that easily, and he'll be back. And having that experience again was really fantastic. And I got, 18,000 gold out of it for maybe like a half hour, 45 minutes worth of adventure. But not having that anymore, having these adventures is kind of tough, because it's like you got to be there. And if you weren't there and you didn't record it, there's not really a good way to get caught up or have other people experience it. Like it's one of the problems that I think a lot of live service games has, is how do you keep things so that you're not constantly adding to the file size of the game over years, but how are you also able to preserve the history of the game so that other people can experience it in some form or another without having to watch a YouTube video of someone that went through it on their own?
See, this is the point in the podcast where I'm gonna say what a Shiny Ray would have said. I don't care about other players. I've been here since the beginning. I've got all these experience. This is a great way for me to go forward. I mean, I guess he would still complain. He wants tall tales too, so maybe not entirely what he would have said, but along those lines.
Yeah, it's the argument of like when I got into Destiny 2, I got in at the very, very beginning. I checked it out, and then I left it alone for years, and I missed out on a ton of story that I had to watch hours worth of YouTube videos of people covering the history of the game to be able to catch up to it. And the tall tales are a perfect way of doing that in game, giving players that personal experience and rewarding them for investing in that time as well too. Like, you get gold, you get cosmetics, there's commendations tied to it, but it does add to the game file, and that gets bloated over time, and you have to worry about how that's going to interact with other stuff. Whereas adventures are visceral moments in time that when they're over, they're over. You don't have to worry about those things being stuck in the game. And how do you get people to go through the adventures in chronological order? Like they how do you make sure that people aren't doing adventure 2 before they've done adventure 1, and then they skip right to 6? And it's like, no, but you missed out on 3, 4, and 5. How can you do that? So I see where people come from on both sides of it. I personally just like having the history kind of represented in game so that people can go back and check that stuff out if they want. But maybe that's something that could be offloaded to traveling through a portal.
Maybe like to the past. You travel to the past, or what?
Something.
Maybe. Like I'm not waiting for it, to be honest. Plus, it also helps that the adventures, there are arcs of 3, right? So it's a different story. Like Adventure 7 is gonna be something else. It's not gonna be about, well, maybe it will be about Merrick, but I don't think it will be about Merrick. I think his story is done now. So we can focus on something else. And if you miss it, well, right, just wait till the finale, and then you can have a new set of adventures. And you're always gonna miss something, like especially with Sea of Thieves, it's always changing. You're always gonna have those people wondering why it's called New Golden Sands instead of Golden Sands. So it's part of the game. I see it like that. Plus, let's not forget, it's a business, and they need to keep that retention going, especially since it's on Game Pass, because you want those players coming in, so you can say to Microsoft like, "Hey, we're still a viable company. Please invest in us. Let's have us keep our team, so we can keep making content." So you need to swallow the FOMO a little bit if you want that other content too. Because if nobody was playing the game, we would not have had captaincy, for example.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's tough to balance, right? Like how do you balance the game so that you're able to constantly keep content rolling in, but you aren't beholden to making that content last forever so that you have to work around it in future. But at the same time, I also feel bad for the artists and the animators and the engineers that had to go in, design all of that Sea Dog Tavern area for 2 weeks worth of content.
Well, yeah, and not just the Sea Dog Tavern, even the smaller adventures too, like those Reaper rowboats. We've only seen them once; they never came back. And all the other little different assets they made as well, like certain animations, like people rebuilding Golden Sands. Well, they only got used once. But luckily there are YouTubers like us that clip everything, and you can watch our videos. So there you go.
Yeah, the community always prevails in the absence of the devs being able to work on something and do something in the long run for people. We always try to preserve the history. I've had so many people reach out to me over the years and say that they've loved listening to past episodes of the podcast because they are captured in the moment of those events, and to hear what the game was like and what was going on during the game in the past. During that, so it's interesting from my perspective that I've been journaling. Essentially, I've been keeping a captain's log of the game since it came out with the podcast, and it's a weird way for people to kind of go back and be like, yeah, I started listening to the podcast from the get-go because I wanted to find out what the history of Sea of Thieves was. And I was like, wow, that's weird.
It's also so weird how we used to think about the future of Sea of Thieves, because I remember one of my earlier podcast episodes where I was sure that we won't get anything about the ancients at all. I was like, oh, these guys are just meant to be mysterious. They're just a lost civilization. Don't need to focus on it. They're not gonna be on the foreground at all. And look at where we are now. You know, like there's so much ancient lore these days. So
it's always entertaining to find out, like when you say something will never happen, or you don't think they'll ever go into it, then as soon as they do, they turn around and tell you about Merrick's skull, or not Merrick's skull, Ramsey's skull staff, and you're like, oh well, I guess I was wrong. They went ahead and just proved me wrong. Thank you, appreciate that. I love the lore. Thanks for making me look like an idiot, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought that Merrick would have been such a prominent figure after the initial update too, as well? Like he changed a lot.
Oh yeah, his whole character's evolved. That's one thing that I've really I like that they've used Merrick to really kind of be a figurehead in the Sea of Thieves. Like you're really able to kind of follow him around, and he's been integral to so much of the story in Sea of Thieves, even from the very beginning. But I've always felt that there is a strong disconnect between having one character with voice lines kind of ushering us forward with the story, but no one else is really tied to the rest of the story. And I think this was the first time where I've ever had Merrick talk about his family and talk about his wife. This was the first time that we've really seen him kind of express a concern for what's going on with his family, and what's been going on with that. Otherwise, it's like off to go kill another monster.
Yeah, how is that dynamic? Because didn't his wife cheat on a Merf man?
Yeah, she ran off with the what was it, the Merfolk prince at one point.
Yeah.
That we found out, and like it was to teach him a lesson about going out hunting megalodons, and then
Isn't she a terrible wife?
I mean that it does not. It seems like a very spiteful thing to do. It was probably done in the heat of the moment. It probably was a one time thing to kind of get Merrick to kind of shape up instead of shipping out.
I hope she feels bad now after that letter. I hope she feels really bad.
What did you think of the letter?
I thought it was amazing. I thought it was very touching. Like my heart always belonged to you. It's I don't know, it's touching. It was a really sweet moment. Even though she doesn't deserve it.
She's taking care of the family. She's raised the kids. They've got the business running. She's definitely been busy. She's kind of been holding the glue together, or holding the house together with the glue, being the glue of that. Or that's a terrible analogy. She's the glue of the family, keeping everyone together. Where Merrick has always kind of been the rogue agent, the romantic adventurer, wanting to go out and have these grand adventures and stuff. He's never invited her out to go kill these creatures. He'll put her as the figurehead of the killer whale too, but he won't be like, Sarek, let's go kill another shark. It's always like, I'm off to go kill another shark. And, she's always like, well, what about me? And he's like, well, you've got the kids and the business to run. And it's like, okay, so you really didn't want her there. So interesting. All right. So maybe I think both of them, you could argue, maybe not the best relationship.
Okay, I guess so. And then she went for some subnautic erotica. And she still keeps the curls in her hair. I hope her model gets changed, that she's wearing, I don't know, like a shark tooth or something instead of those curls. Like, you're done now with that Merfolk prince. Just mourn about your real husband.
Yeah, I think the letter was beautiful, and I think they did a really great job of having Merrick's voice lines over the actual script, like as you're kind of going. It was a very movie-esque moment that was done real time, and I thought that was really cool. I got some photos of the letter to see, and S&M are all over that letter, by the way.
S&M?
Yeah, Sarek and Merrick, which makes me question what's going on with the mystery right now, but that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, we won't discuss that on this podcast. We don't have the time. But yeah, you're right. It was very well edited with the audio as well. And then at the end, she says Merrick in her own voice. It was nice. It was really nice. So I have a question for you, and it's about the lore. What are the secrets Merrick is keeping?
I think the secrets that Merrick are keeping are how to convert islands into areas of the Sea of the Damned. The way, because right now I think Merrick knows more about what was going on with the relics that were being used to convert old Golden Sands Outpost to some place that would be able to allow Flameheart to be resurrected. And I think that information is something that they are looking to do, that power. They're looking to gain that knowledge of how do you summon a megalodon? How do you summon the shrouded ghost? I think they're trying to get those last couple commendations as well too. But I also think that they're trying to find out more about how to utilize those relics that they have right now. The only relic that they have right now are the Gold Hoarder skull. And that's all they've got right now. They've got cursed cannonballs, but they've had those because Wanda, the Warsmith, made those. Duke isn't contributing anything, I think, except wealth to the situation. But that's a whole nother story that I can't get into right now. But overall, I think they're trying to understand more about the relics. And I think Merrick is one of the few people that has been dealing with relics and magical summonings and stuff like that he understands better than anyone else outside of maybe like Bell or Ramses. but he's much more accessible. So I think they're trying to get those secrets from him so that they can figure out, like, I don't know what they plan to do with that. I don't know if they're trying to bring Captain back or if they're trying to free Davy Jones. Like, I mean, it's still kind of nebulous what their MO is at this point.
Yeah, freeing Davy Jones is still a possibility, but I hope it won't go that way, actually. I had enough of him.
Yeah, I'm looking
Um,
forward to the captain.
Yeah, everybody is. But I don't know. I don't think the captain will happen anytime soon. It'll be a while before we see him.
I feel like we'll probably see him next year.
Yeah, next year. Yeah, next year maybe. Yeah, we'll see. I have no idea, by the way, what the secrets are. I kind of take it at face value when it comes. I'm like, oh, in Adventure, I don't know, 9. Like, oh, these were the secrets. All right, yeah, sure, it makes sense. I don't really speculate all that much about it. One thing that was interesting, I think, was that the Pirate Lord also knows what secrets they are. Well, and I guess the Dark Brethren know what they want to know.
That's an interesting thing. They may know that he has secrets, but they may not know what those secrets are.
Yeah, but would you kidnap somebody for that?
Yeah, I would. If you knew someone was winning against Flameheart and they had information and they were kind of like a general in that army, like I would 100% I would steal that general and probably beat him up as much as possible to try and get those secrets. Like I would do whatever it took. Even if I didn't know what those secrets are, I know that he's probably got pretty good information, but I think you're right. I think you're right in this scenario that they know what those secrets are. They just or they know what the secrets pertain to, but they don't know what the secrets are.
Yeah, I feel so, yeah. Don't you think it's strange that like they hinted at it in the synopsis on the website, like, oh, he has secrets, and then we saw it in the trailer, tell me your secrets, Merrick, or we'll fucking kill you again. Or fate worse than getting killed, apparently, whatever that may be. Don't you think it's strange that we still don't know it after this adventure, what it is?
I feel like whatever the secrets are will play out in the future because it's a Chekhov's gun scenario where you see the gun on the mantle and you spend a good amount of time staring at the gun in the film and you're wondering, okay, apparently that gun is foreshadowing something, like that gun has to get fired. So I think at some point, maybe not necessarily at the end of this adventure, we will find out what those secrets are. But I don't think that they're ready to tell us yet. Very much in the same way that as soon as you do one of the Ancient Veil missions for the Pirate Legends, Ramses is at he's at the base of your top deck, and he's like, or he's on your top deck saying, "I'll keep this safe for the future," and you're like, "Okay, so we're going to be using it then to get to the Sea of the Damned, because why else would we keep this thing instead of destroying it?" And it's like, now we're seeing this in an adventure later. We've been doing these Veil missions for a long time, and only now is it paid off, where it's like, oh, so that's what Ramses was hanging on to this for, is he was hoping to use it as a way to get us to travel to the Sea of the Damned. I thought we were going to go back to go save his son, but turns out it was Merrick.
He doesn't care about his son.
I'm so confused. The whole mystery thing is just really confusing the heck out of me. But I think that with the secrets, I think we'll find out what the secrets are. I'm just not sure when we're going to find out what the secrets are.
Yeah, we will. We will definitely find out what it is, but when, we will see. But I was a little bit disappointed. Like, I was really hoping we would get some answers, and we didn't.
Yeah, it did kind of leave us at an awkward point where it's like, okay, cool, we did the thing. What did that get us? Merrick's security? Not really, because he's still going to be hunted, but he's just going to be hidden away now for however long somewhere in the Sea of the Damned. So, maybe we'll see him one day if we ever go back. Maybe we won't, or maybe he'll show up as a ghost somewhere else and he'll just pop up the way Belle does. It's like, we don't really know at the end of the day. Which is a little, I can understand the frustration in that, because it's like, you did all this work for what?
Yeah, we don't know why we saved him. Well, besides that, we like him, obviously.
Yeah, that's essentially that. We're rescuing the princess to be stolen away another day.
Aye. Anything else you want to mention about this adventure before we go to the messages?
I'm glad that we went back to the Sea of the Damned. I'm always a big fan of the Sea of the Damned. I think it's a really beautiful world that they've created, and any reason to go back there is great. I'm glad that they're experimenting more with the portal system. I hope they continue to do so. I hope they continue to take into consideration the worst of players who are not going to want to contribute to the experience in future designs.
I agree with that. Before we go to the messages, I have one more question about you. For you, sorry, because at the beginning of the podcast, you said you didn't like that the Servant of the Flame was Flameheart Jr.
Yeah, it was a boring reveal. They're like, oh, he's been lying in secret the whole time. And it's like, yeah, we kind of figured like he was going to be one that was Flameheart Jr. It's like, who's the Servant of Flame? I don't know. It could be, I was hoping that he was going to be like I honestly wanted the Servant of Flame to be a servant of the flame, a marionette, a puppet that is embodied by spirits, whether it be Flameheart Jr. or Flameheart Sr. during times that it's necessary. Otherwise, it is just a magically crafted golem that does what it needs to do because it's ordered to do so. And I hoped that it was like one of those cursed pets where it's like the cursed monkey or the cursed parrot, where they are inanimate creatures that are brought to life through magic. And that's what I hoped the Servant of Flame actually was, and not just Flameheart Jr. Because it's like it felt too easy for it to just be Flameheart Jr.
Yeah. We got that lore reveal with the previous adventure as well. Like, I really like the previous adventure because of all the lore. Because then we also learned that Flameheart Jr. escaped the thrall of the captain by his sheer devotion to his father, which I still think is a lame explanation, but it's an answer to the question.
It is a lame excuse. It's like I always wanted there to be this dynamic. It's like father versus son, Luke versus Vader. Like it's a great story to tell in history. It would have been a great kind of like, how could you do this, father? You were supposed to save the Sea of Thieves. He's like, I was trying to save it for you. It was going to be your kingdom. And he's like, I didn't want a kingdom. I wanted a father. You could have you could have gone that route, and they decided not to. And I think that's a personal expectation that I had that has diminished the reveal of who Flameheart Jr. is.
And I totally agree. Like, it's a bit one note. Like, you don't want your villains to be one dimensional, and they could have this dynamic between those two, and they missed it. I still hope we're gonna get it eventually. I don't know how you feel about that.
I hope that it's been so one note this whole time. It would be completely out of character. There would actually have to be a pivotal moment in the storytelling experience to change Flameheart Jr.'s devotion to his father at that point. And I think that would be the only way that I could really foresee them being able to change it, so that Flameheart Jr. would go against his father at this point. As of right now, he's so one note, he's so one dimensional that I can't really see anything interesting happening with him, which is why I'm less interested in him and more interested in the Dark Brethren, because Wanda has been spurned as a lover from Flameheart Sr. Duke has been spurned as a build rat, which is not in fact true. He's been evil the whole time. He hit it really, really well. But no, he's been spurned as a build rat and been cast out from the Sea of Thieves and held up with the Dark Brethren. Amaranta always wanted to be in charge of the Sea Dog Tavern. She was railed against for years, and she finally broke away and decided to capture her life back. So she's been spurned by the Sea Dogs. Everyone that's in the Dark Brethren court. Rathbone was too greedy, and he was spurned by his crew and cast out, so he became the Gold Hoarder. Davy Jones was spurned by his lover. He wanted to love Calypso, and their love could never be because she's a sea goddess. So he was spurned by love. Like, everyone is damaged in the Dark Brethren court, and it's very noir, and I love that. And that's a more interesting story than my father's the king of Sea of Thieves, and I'm going to resurrect him. That's it.
Yeah, well, I do hope we will get some more interesting reveals around the Reapers and Flameheart Jr. But I agree with the Dark Brethren. Like they all are outcasts and they want to belong to something, and they find each other. That's the Dark Brethren. All right, so let's go to the message in the bottle, and that's a segment of the podcast where our listeners can send in their own questions, and hey, we answer them. If you want to send your own questions, you can join the Salty Hippo Discord. Link will be in the YouTube description. And we only have 2 questions this time. And the first one comes from Valkan. He asks us, do you think Merrick will be gone from the spotlight, or will his becoming a ghost unlock more possibilities for this character?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I want to take a side on this, but I kind of like the idea of both. I do think that we're going to focus in on a new character going forward. I don't know who that character could be. Like, it could be DeMarco. I could see them kind of trying to wrap up the mystery and have us focus on that. But I don't know what they can really do with Merrick, because they've literally sat there and said, we're going to keep you safe and you're going to stay a ghost so that no one can do anything. So if he does anything, it's going to draw the attention of the Dark Brethren, because obviously they operate both in the Sea of the Damned and the Sea of Thieves. So it doesn't matter where you go, you're going to be kind of with that target on your back. So if he does anything with the story, it risks compromising the sacrifices that he made in this adventure to protect the Sea of Thieves and to protect his family. So I think he's going to be pulled out of the spotlight and someone else will step into that spotlight. But I also kind of like the idea of him still having a purpose. I just don't know what it would be.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Like, I feel it's fine. Like, I don't want more Merrick now, because his story is done, I feel, for the time being at least. And he was a great character, and he's one of my favorites. But I love other characters as well, and there are characters that I want to see more fleshed out, that I still don't know their motivations of, that I have still questions about. I want to see their journeys, and Merrick's story being done will provide more room for other characters. I'm looking forward to that. I do want a place to interact with him, I guess. It would be cool to visit him in the hideout. People have been talking about that in the comments. That would be cool. Or when the Hunter's Call gets expanded, he can make a quick return. Like, we're hunting, sea serpents now, and here are missions, and have fun with that. I'm gonna drink some grog now.
Yeah, like I could 100% see him in Athena's Fortune, like kind of at the bar with, or maybe hanging out with Blind Bob. Maybe that'd be a good thing. You could finally give Blind Bob someone to have jokes told to.
Merrick will actually laugh at those jokes too.
Yeah, he probably would. Yeah, I could see that. That would definitely be that would make sense in the lore. I do like the idea of them expanding the Hunter's Call. I think it would be really interesting if they had Merrick kind of stowed away in the Sea of the Damned, and you had to travel to the Sea of the Damned, and there was like a whole fleshed out, like real mythical creatures crafted out of the memories of drunken sailors that you have to go and hunt down. And he has a whole thing going on there where you go and tackle some of the creatures like dragons or rocks or sea serpents and giant turtles and giant crabs and stuff. And like, you could really play around with the idea that things in Sea of Thieves are magical, but there's some stuff that even Sea of Thieves doesn't manifest. But when you're in the Sea of the Damned, it's all based off of memory, and memories can be twisted and contorted the way Sea Dog Tavern has by people. So why not have something that could be, it was a giant sea serpent, and it's like, no, it wasn't, it was a dragon. And it's like, oh man. So like Merrick's there, and you have to go and deal with that.
Indeed, would be cool. Yeah, hunting ghostly hippos or something like that in the Sea of Damned. That would be nice.
But would they be flying?
Why would they be flying? What? Why would the hippos be flying?
I don't know. Is it just flying hippos?
I like your idea of rocks. Like bird rock would be nice. I want to hunt that for flying enemy. Yeah.
I always had this dream that we would get flying rocks, and that they would swoop down, and their talons would grip into the side of a ship and start lifting it up out of the, because everyone loves flying ships in Sea Thieves. It would grip the side of your ship, and you had to use the cannons to shoot the talons to weaken the grip, so that eventually it would drop the ship back into the water, and you could continue the fight.
It would be cool. I really hope we'll get something like that in the future. And sea serpents. I want sea serpents as well.
That'd be cool too. Yeah, I'd be interested to see what those would look like and act like.
Aye. So, final question comes from Eelwalsh. How far do you think the Brethren story will go? Wanda made it clear they're not done with Merrick yet, but do you think the focus will shift away from the Brethren in the next adventure? And he's adding, because I really hope so. He doesn't really like Dark Brethren, Eelwalsh, I think, but it's fine. So how far do you think the Dark Brethren story will go?
I think that it will probably pause for now, because the only reason I believe that is not because I think that they're done with the Dark Brethren. I think that they are still wanting to wrap up Flameheart. So they said that by the end of the year they wanted to get the Flameheart story wrapped up. And I think the only way you do that now, and this was based on one of the podcasts that they had talked about, I think last year. So I think they want to have the content now that Merrick is out of the picture. They can now move away from them trying to get the secrets that he has. He's out of the limelight, and I think that the story is now going to, like, it's I'm trying to think of like in Athena's Fortune, Chris Alcock had chapters dedicated to Ramses and then Larinna, and then going back to Ramses and then going back to Larinna. And because he's still heavily involved with the story of Sea Thieves, I would not be surprised if we're turning the page and we're finishing this chapter. In this chapter, it was the Dark Brethren chapter, and now we're going back to the Flameheart chapter, like we had prior to the previous chapter, where we were going after Golden Sands Outpost. So the Golden Sands Outpost was Flameheart and dealing with that, and then it switched over to the Brethren Court, and now I think we're going to flip back over to Flameheart, and I think we're going to finish out the year kind of tying up the loose ends about Flameheart, whether we resurrect him or he doesn't get resurrected, but whatever we do ushers in the captain. I feel like that's where we're going to go.
Yeah, some sort of climax regarding Flameheart before the end of the year, I should say, or before the end of season 8, 9, 10? No, 9 then.
Yeah, I think by the end of 9 we'll kind of have that summer. At least that's what I'm hoping. I think the delay in season 7 pushed the time frame back, so we would have probably finished off at season 9 by the end of the year, but I think everything's kind of gotten pushed out a little bit, so may not be at the end of the year. They may have had to kind of push into 2023 at this point, but I think that, yeah, we're going to move back into Flameheart Jr. story at this point. Hopefully they figure out what's going on and they resurrect Flameheart. He has a skeleton body now, and he's down in the Reaper's Bones hideout, which is they finally open up the door to the Reaper's Bones hideout, and you go down in there, and it's the cave system that the captain was using to turn all of Flameheart Jr.'s crew into skeletons, and that's the hideout that they've been in this whole time. They've been above that cave system with the chalice, and that's why the chalice has been so integral in the iconography of the Reaper's Bones, and that's why he's been guarding the entrance to that place for so long, is because it's where he turned into a skeleton lord, and that's the culmination. And then it gives us that whole opportunity to have Flameheart and the Reaper's Bones become their own pirate lord or pirate legend faction. Then you can kind of choose, like, do you want to be a pirate legend for the Reaper's Bones, or do you want to be a pirate legend for the pirate lord in Athena's Fortune, and give us that really kind of like two sides of the coin choice. And I'm hoping that's where we're going in the future.
Interesting. I like that you think that island is the island Junior stranded on. Never made that connection myself, because the island in the book is like a big rocky island, isn't it? It's like huge.
Yeah, it's I want to say that it's probably due to time or issues that are things that have happened in the game that has kind of moved some of the rocks off or changed the environment, because we've seen the environment change there.
Yeah, just portals appearing everywhere.
Right? Giant, yeah, stuff. The rocks move on their own. We have no control. They get up and walk away if they really want to. So, I have a feeling that they might retcon the location of where that cave was a little bit based on, like, the 4 years that they've had from the time that they did Tales from a Sea of Thieves and the current day meta of what Sea of Thieves is and the Reaper's Bones. And I think they kind of make the little the little trapdoor that's in the Reaper's Bones hideout be the entrance to the Reaper's Bones like legend tavern, but that is the original cave. And you have a little shrine in there, have a little pedestal where the cup of the carpenter for the Indiana Jones reference down in there, and there's just tons. Like, it would not surprise me if Mike Chapman has this opportunity to recreate the room where the Knight of the Round Table was guarding all of the cups, and you've just got chalices everywhere lining the walls, and there's one specific one that is a secret one that if you tip it, not necessarily like pick it up and drink from it. Maybe you could do that as a way to kind of convert yourself over to the Reaper's Bones. And that's how you finally get your skeleton curse that isn't tied to the Warsmith. But maybe you tip it over and it unlocks a secret door in a rock slab, slides into the ground, and you go down in, and that's how you get into the Reaper's Bones hideout. Maybe I'm clearly just tossing spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks, but there's so much that you could do with that I think would be really kind of cool, and even little pop culture references and things like that. But that's kind of what I'm hoping will happen with the future of the rest of the year, but I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. Like, interesting thoughts. But was it the cup or the water that turns people into skeletons?
I think it was the cup. I think the water. The water was what was kind of acting as the catalyst for them touching the chalice. I think the chalice itself was the thing that they had to put to their lips, and then when they did, that was what cursed them.
All right, fair enough. Let's hope so. And but what do you think the Dark Brethren will do? Because I think it's also going to be on pause for a while. They're going to focus on different stories now. That's what I feel. I want to see everything going forward. If the Dark Brethren go forward, how would their story look?
I think they're going to continue trying to do what Davy Jones had did, which was Davy Jones was trying to get the special trinket that Jack Sparrow had. Jack Sparrow got it back, but that trinket, whether you believe Tinkerbell's in that little mysterious box or not, allows Jack to go wherever essentially he wants between realms, everything. Like, it just lets him travel wherever he wants to go. It opens up a giant portal, and you just travel through it. They were trying to get that so that as soon as they had that, they had a control for a way for the captain to get back to the Sea of Thieves. And the captain's close, but he's not able to get back in, or at least he will come in when it's opportune. And I think that relic was kind of the thing that was going to allow him to get back to the Sea of Thieves. And I think that the Veil of Ancients was a tantalizing opportunity for them to try and get something that allowed the captain to travel from the Sea of the Damned to the Sea of Thieves. Maybe that's where he's at. But I think that the Dark Brethren are going to continue to exercise efforts in trying to discover relics that will allow them to transport the captain from wherever the captain is back to the Sea of Thieves.
That's what I think too. Eventually, the Dark Brethren will be somewhat responsible for bringing the captain back, and that'll be their story going forward.
Yeah. That's kind of my goal, hopefully.
Yeah, can't wait to see it. But first Flameheart.
Yeah, I think it's good to build up Flameheart so that when the captain comes back, there's a good kind of conversation that has to be had between like the mutineer and the mutiny.
I totally agree. So hopefully that will answer your question, E. Walsh. I think it does. I mean, Logan takes 10 minutes to answer one question, so I think you should be happy with that. All right, so thanks again to those that submitted their questions. And again, make sure to join the Salty Hippo Discord if you want to submit your own. I always post an announcement when we are close to recording a new episode. I also want to remind our listeners that this podcast is also on Spotify and Amazon Music, so if that's more convenient for you, you can listen to us there. Shiny Ray's in charge of that, so if it's late, you can blame him, not me. And you can also follow us on Twitter at BestCOT Podcast. Link is in the description. So, we have come to the end of the podcast, and I want to thank our wonderful guest, Captain Logun, for being amazing. And can you tell our listeners where they can find your content?
Yeah, just search Keelhauled or Sea of Thieves in any of your podcatchers. You'll find my show there. If you want to get in touch with me on Twitter, that's the best place at CAPT_LOGUN. And then I'm also in the Salty Hippo Discord too. So if you're listening to this and you have thoughts or concerns or want to tell me how wrong I am, you can always @ me on the Salty Hippo Discord as well too.
Super nice. And you can find me on YouTube at Captain Blubber. Just type in Captain Blubber and you will find me. So make sure you give this podcast a thumbs up. That's always appreciated. And let us know how you feel about this recent adventure in the comments. So that's it. Thanks for listening. Have fun on the seas and steal some treasure.
Goodbye.
Bye.